Hi, everyone. Welcome to a Viking Sports Wrap online edition here at KSTP.com and 1500ESPN.com. My name is Darren Doogie Wolfson. This is Vikings beat reporter Tom Pelissero of 1500ESPN.com. Tom, looking back at week one, who was more responsible for the offensive ineptitude, Donovan McNabb or Bill Musgrave?
Well, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I don't think you can take the offensive line out of it either. What San Diego was able to do really well, and they do it with their 3-4 scheme, was they got pressure on the edges. So not only are they trapping Donovan McNabb within the pocket in terms of making it harder for him to get out and scramble and make things happen on the perimeter, but the design bootlegs and the things that they had done so well in the preseason, San Diego obviously knew that was coming. Multiple times you saw McNabb trying to get out of the pocket on a design sprint out, roll out, whatever you want to call it. He couldn't do that. That's where McNabb's at his best, is when he's outside the pocket. He's not a particularly accurate inside the pocket passer. And then even when it was just a drop back passes, there was so much pressure being put on the tackles. 13 times in that game, 13 times the Chargers got pressure on Donovan McNabb, and that's a lot when you only throw 15 passes.
I was told that McNabb at today's press conference said whether he throws for, it's the old football cliche, whether I throw for 400 yards or 40 yards, it's all about winning. But I'll tell you what, if you throw for 400 yards and lose, at least you can feel good about the offense. Can Vikings fans feel good about this offense right now?
Well, and you would think that you're probably down in that game if you're throwing for 400 yards and losing and coming back late. The fact that you only throw for 39 yards, I mean, this isn't throwing for 150. It's throwing for 39 yards, completing 7 passes. After the touchdown to Michael Jenkins with 10 minutes to go in the second quarter, he completed 1 pass the rest of the game. That's unbelievable. There's a lot of different factors involved. I do think that McNabb, on some level, he had said it after the game when I asked about it, he said it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to put those numbers out there after all the years he's played. He should be able to throw for 39 yards on a series, but there are real questions about this offense. They need to be able to figure out and analyze what they're doing. There were way too many 3rd and 5 to 9s. You got to get in 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 if you're going to have the third downs that the Vikings did on their drives. Instead, it was constantly those mid-range ones, and those are harder to do, especially when they're taking away, as the Chargers were, a lot of the underneath stuff.
One of those questions has to involve the left tackle. Off the top of my head, here's a list of elite pass rushers the Vikings will see the rest of the year. Julius Peppers twice, Clay Matthews twice, Brian Arakpo, Tamba Hali, Elvis Dumerville, John Abraham, Will Smith. They're going to see some guys who can get to the quarterback. Charlie Johnson needs some help out there, doesn't he?
I'd be worried about Charlie Johnson against anyone right now. He gave up 5 quarterback pressures, including a sack in that game against San Diego. They're able to put pressure on him. They're able to beat him with the speed rush. You'd think that as a lighter, more athletic guy, the type of guy that Indianapolis likes on both their offensive and defensive lines, they've always wanted those lighter, more athletic guys who can move on the AstroTurf. Johnson should be able to do that, and instead, it's the speed rushes that are beating him. Guys can also beat him with a bull rush. There's a lot of different things they can do, and there's only so many times you can keep Jim Kleinsasser in as a 6-man in protection. You can't do that all day because it takes guys out of pattern. And also, they're using Jim Kleinsasser in the F role because they don't have a fullback on the team.
How should the Vikings use Joe Webb?
Well, I think that they potentially could have executed those 2 plays that they ran with him in, I call it the Wildcat formation. I know it's called the Blazer package. The one, Joe Webb just moved a little bit too quickly, didn't set up his blocks well. The second one had the outside option. It looked like that may have been the way to go. Instead, he goes with the inside handoff to Percy Harvin. It doesn't go anywhere. He's a very good athlete. I think that you really need to choose your spots. They said they ran that in that spot in the third quarter because they were in the right area of the field. Okay. But that shouldn't be an excuse. If you're moving the chains as they were at that point with Adrian Peterson, you've got to be able to get the passing game going. That was an opportunity for them. They thought to have some big plays. Instead, it absolutely blew up in their faces. I think you will continue to see it. I think that they will run it again against Tampa Bay, but they've just got to execute it better.
Is Tampa Bay a favorable matchup?
I think along the lines they potentially are. Their offensive line is weak. Donald Penn, the left tackle, has not played well over the past couple of seasons. The Vikings' defensive line, if there's a big upside to that first game, Brian Robinson and Jared Allen, the pressure those guys were able to put on, the way they both played the run, too, and making some plays out in space. Robinson sniffing out a screen, Jared Allen making that athletic interception on one of his zone drops. They dropped him in zone coverage like 5-6 times. 14 zone blitzes from Fred Puggich. You put that sort of pressure on Tampa Bay's offensive line. Now, you need to be able to keep Josh Freeman in the pocket. You can't have him making things happen with his legs all day. But if you're able to do that, put pressure on their passing game, then what you got to do is tackle LeGarrette Blount, and he's a tough guy to bring down.
Forget one game at a time. I'm looking big picture, or at least a 4-week picture. Tampa at home, Detroit at home, at Kansas City, Arizona at home. They should win 2 or 3 of these games.
Well, I think that they're all matchups that have their challenges to them. I think Tampa Bay sets up relatively well in the opener. I think Detroit is a team that's going to put a lot of pressure on them. Kansas City's terrible right now, so yeah, you should be able to win that game. Really, it's going to come down to what happens in these 2 home games. Because if you lose both of them and you're 0-3, There's going to be calls for Christian Ponder. It's going to be, the season's not going to be lost. You can come back from an 0-3 start, but statistically, it's extremely hard in the NFL to come all the way back from that. They've got to, if they can win 2, that's great. If they split the 2, at least that continues them building a little bit of momentum going forward. I'm just interested to see, how does the offense grow? Can the defense execute better? There's a lot of the same questions that we've heard really since the beginning of last season about this team. The offensive line and the secondary. I don't know that we got really good answers to those in the San Diego game. Tampa, they run that 4-3 Tampa 2 like the Vikings do. There's a lot of similarities in terms of what they do defensively. I think this will be a really telling matchup. They should be able to win this game at home. If they don't, I think you got big trouble.
What stood out from Leslie Frazier's news conference today?
Not much. I mean, really, they're attempting to, I don't want to say protect Bill Musgrave, but they're not going to sit there and say that, everything's burning to the ground, we've got to start over. What they want to say is we've got to execute it better, but Leslie Frazier did acknowledge the fact that they're analyzing what they're doing on first and second down. Second half of that game, 75% of their first or second down snaps were runs. I understand you're trying to get Adrian Peterson going, but when you're constantly putting yourself in 3rd, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yards to go, you're not going to be able to have success.
Check out Tom's work, 1500ESPN.com. For Tom Pelissero, I'm Darren Doogie Wolfson. Have a great day, everyone.